There are towns in this country that seem to exist out of time. Small pockets of forgotten asphalt and fading storefronts, nestled deep in forests of pine and oak. Crestfall was one of those towns. A place where the loudest sound on a Tuesday night was the hum of a soda machine outside the closed gas station, and the biggest news was a bake sale at the church. It was a town that prided itself on its quiet, on the comforting predictability of its days. But quiet places have a way of holding secrets, and sometimes the deepest silence isn't peaceful. It's the breath held right before a scream. Ilara knew that quiet well. She'd lived in Crestfall her whole life, in a small house at the end of a long gravel road, bordered on three sides by woods that seemed to drink the sunlight. She was a librarian, a curator of other people's stories, while her own life unfolded in neat, predictable chapters. She found comfort in the order of it all, in the Dewey Decimal System of her existence. She didn't know that her story was about to be violently rewritten, that a new, terrifying character was about to be introduced. She didn't know that the silence she cherished was about to be broken forever. The first time it happened, it was just a whisper on the edge of town. A story told in hushed tones at the diner. Two teenagers, parked out by Miller's Creek, the local lover's lane, had been attacked. The boy was in the hospital with a fractured skull. The girl was traumatized, speaking in fragments about a tall man in a crude white mask. A sack, really, with holes cut for eyes. The police called it an isolated incident, a robbery gone wrong. But Ilara, shelving books on folklore and urban legends, felt a cold knot tighten in her stomach. The description was too specific, too theatrical. It felt less like a robbery and more like a performance. A week later, Ilara was driving home late from a town meeting. The gravel crunched under her tires as she turned onto her road. Her headlights cut a tunnel through the oppressive dark. And then they caught something, just for a second. At the edge of the woods where her property began, a figure, tall, motionless. By the time she slammed on the brakes, heart hammering against her ribs, it was gone, vanished back into the trees. She told herself it was a deer, a trick of the light, but she couldn't shake the image from her mind. A pale, blank face turned towards her in the darkness. The town's comforting quiet began to feel different. It was no longer peaceful. It was watchful, tense. Every snapped twig in the woods behind Ilara's house was a footstep. Every shadow was a figure waiting. She started locking her doors during the day. She bought thicker curtains for her windows. The police chief, a man she'd known since kindergarten, told her she was letting stories get the best of her. "It's a safe town, Ilara," he'd said, his voice meant to be reassuring. But his eyes kept flicking to the woods that surrounded them. Then the second attack happened. An elderly couple, the Hendersons, who lived 2 miles down the road from Ilara. They were killed in their home. The killer's entry was clean, professional. There was no robbery. The only thing out of place was a single muddy footprint on the porch, and a detail the police tried to keep from the papers. A small, hand-carved bird left on the nightstand between the victims. It was the same type of bird Ilara had seen old Mr. Henderson whittling on his porch just days before. The killer wasn't just a phantom. He was a ghost who knew their lives. He was watching. That night, Ilara couldn't sleep. She sat in her darkened living room, a heavy fireplace poker resting on her lap. The phone rang, the sound so sharp and sudden it made her cry out. She stared at it, letting it ring. Once, twice, 10 times. It stopped. And then a moment later, a soft, rhythmic thump. Thump. Thump came from her front porch. Someone was rocking in her rocking chair. Ilara's blood ran cold. She crept to the window, peering through a crack in the curtains. The chair was moving back and forth, empty, but on the seat was a small, freshly carved wooden bird. He knew she was there. He knew she was alone. The fight wasn't just in the town anymore. It was personal. He had chosen her. Panic is a cold fire. It burns through you, leaving you hollow and shaking. Ilara called the police chief. He came himself, his face grim. He found nothing, no footprints, no sign of anyone. The bird was gone. "Are you sure, Ilara?" he asked, and she saw the doubt in his eyes. He thought she was hysterical, alone. That was the phantom's true weapon. He didn't just isolate his victims physically. He isolated them from belief, from help. He made them seem crazy. She knew she couldn't rely on anyone else. The next day, she drove to the next county and bought a shotgun. She spent the afternoon practicing, the kickback bruising her shoulder, the smell of gunpowder sharp in the air. She was a librarian. She organized books. Now she was loading shells, her hands trembling but her jaw set. He had turned her quiet life into a hunting ground. So she would learn to be a hunter. The power went out 2 nights later. A storm was rolling in, but this was no act of nature. The line had been cut. The house was plunged into an absolute, suffocating blackness. The only sound was the rising wind and her own ragged breathing. She grabbed the shotgun and a heavy flashlight, its beam cutting a nervous, trembling path through the rooms she had known her whole life. They felt alien now, dangerous. She checked the locks, all secure. But the cold dread creeping up her spine told her she wasn't safe. He was already inside. A floorboard creaked upstairs. She didn't scream. The sound was trapped in her throat, a knot of pure ice. He was upstairs, in her house, her sanctuary. The flashlight beam shook violently in her hand. She could run, flee into the dark woods, but she knew he would be out there, waiting. This was his game, his stage. And this was the final act. Her house, her rules. Pointing the shotgun up the stairs, she took the first step, the old wood groaning under her weight. Come on, she thought, her internal voice a desperate prayer. Come on. Each step was an eternity, the top of the stairs. The hallway stretched before her, a corridor of shadows. Her bedroom door was slightly ajar. He was in there, waiting. She could hear a faint sound now, a soft scraping noise. She took a deep, shuddering breath, raised the shotgun to her shoulder, and kicked the door open. The room was empty. The window was wide open, curtains billowing in the wind. For a heart-stopping moment, she thought he had gone, that she had imagined it. Then the scraping sound came again, from behind her. She spun around, and he was there, filling the doorway. A tall, dark silhouette against the black of the hallway. On his head, the terrifyingly blank white sack mask. In his hand, a long, gleaming hunting knife. He took one slow step into the room, then another. He wasn't rushing. He was savoring it. This was the hero at the mercy of the villain. Her, cornered. Him, inevitable. He raised the knife, and in that split second she saw not a monster, but just a man. A man who thought she was still a scared librarian. She didn't aim for his chest. She aimed for his knee. The blast was deafening in the small room, a roar of fire and thunder that threw her backwards. He collapsed with a guttural scream of pain and shock, the knife clattering to the floor. He was scrambling, dragging his shattered leg, trying to get to the open window. She was on her feet, the shotgun heavy in her hands. She could end it, right there. The thought was cold and clear in her mind, but as she looked at the pathetic, writhing shape on the floor, she saw the reflection of the person he had almost made her become. She didn't fire again. She let him crawl out the window and disappear into the stormy darkness, a wounded animal retreating to its lair. The police arrived to a scene of controlled chaos. Ilara, wrapped in a blanket, told them everything. They found a trail of blood leading into the woods, but it vanished in the pouring rain. The phantom was gone. Crestfall breathed a collective sigh of relief. The quiet returned. Ilara became a local hero, the librarian who fought back. But she knew the truth. She had survived, yes, but she hadn't won. Because as she was sweeping up the broken glass in her bedroom the next morning, she found something tucked under her pillow. A small, perfectly carved wooden bird, made from a wood that didn't grow anywhere near her property. He had been in her room long before the power went out. The story wasn't over. He was still out there, and he was still watching. The deepest darkness is often found in the quietest places, and some stories never truly end. If you want to explore more tales from the shadows, subscribe to The Dark Silent and turn on notifications. Fear is waiting. What story should we uncover next? Let us know in the comments below.